This is my first time.
First time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I've been out of circulation for a while.
Did you find anything good?
Yeah, the show called Babylon 5. I've been watching it for the very first time. Jeff and I are two Star Trek podcasting veterans who are watching Babylon 5 for the first time. We're searching for Star Trek-like messages, trying to decide if we should have watched this one sooner, maybe trying to watch it like your little girl was asking about there, Jeff.
The other night when we were watching that other show we haven't started the game yet, so I can say it. That other show, Star Trek, She sits down and she says, so is Babylon 5 just Star Trek with different uniforms?
That's what we're trying to decide here. And so far, the answer is sort of. Sometimes. Right. It's sometimes that other show with different uniforms isn't even that other show with different uniforms. And so that's what we're doing here, folks. We're trying to look and see, does this show have a start? We're applying the filter, Jeff. That's what it is. We're applying that filter we've gained as Star Trek podcasters to Babylon 5 to see what the show really is all about and what does it really mean and what does it really say to us even 30 years later.
And I just referenced our game. We watch a lot of Star Trek, Brent and I. We have a whole podcast dedicated to it, but this is not one of them. So to keep us on task, we each get only 3 Star Trek references starting now until the point that we actually, compare this show to the messages in that other show.
Jeff, it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show.
Yeah, I love this part.
Reviews, comments, stuff where people talk back to us and we like to talk back to you guys because go figure, Jeff and I like to talk. Jeff, you're out there scouring the internet for emails, comments, tweets, all that sort of stuff. Do we have anything good come in this week?
We, Brent, have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
That's right, on Apple Podcast.
What was that?
That was Jakar. Jakar is excited that we've got a 5-star review.
I love it.
Percy's owner went to Apple Podcasts, left 5 stars, and said, I love B5. It is great to have a review from completely unspoiled reviewers. The fact that you hosts are well-versed in Star Trek is just icing on the cake. I look forward to more from you.
Percy, we look forward to more conversations with you. Thank you for leaving us a review, a rating, and all that jazz. You're awesome.
That is the for sure way to have us share your message here on the podcast. Go to Apple Podcasts, go to Podchaser. We get immediately notified of those reviews. If you go to Audible or somewhere else, just take a screenshot. Hit us up on Twitter at Babylon First or send us an email through our website, Babylon5first.com, the number 5, the word first.com, and we'll share it here. And speaking of our Twitter, at Babylon First, Baradur at Jomsbryn on Twitter says, as a longtime viewer of Trek, I've been meaning to get into Babylon 5, so imagine my surprise when I just today discover this podcast. About to give it a listen after I watch The Gathering. So welcome, Baradur. So happy to have you on our first time journey with us.
Hey, Baradur. Samesies. And by the way, Baradur, isn't that the name of one of the towers of Lord of the Rings?
I think it might be.
Yeah. Cool. I like
it's
the name.
It's almost one of the people in Knights of the Old Republic too. It's Baradur, though.
Baradur. Wait. Is it Sauron's tower or is it Sauron's tower? I think it's Sauron's.
I'm pretty sure it's Saruman. Do you think it's Sauron?
I think it's Sauron's. Baradur.
Yeah. It has literally been, so when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, I was managing movie theaters because I'm not a young person anymore. But that's the last time I really had exposure to Tolkien's world. And might have to dive back in.
When movie theaters opened back up after the pandemic, you could get into movie theaters and be like the only people there.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it.
And they were like, because Hollywood wasn't putting out new releases, the local movie theater started playing old movies, and they did a Lord of the Rings trilogy. So my wife and I got to go rewatch the whole trilogy in the movie theater once again. And it was private screening like all 3 times. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
By the way, I'm right. It was Sauron's tower, not Saruman's.
Okay. Nice job. On YouTube, if you're listening to us on any of the podcasting apps out there, thank you so much for checking us out. But over on YouTube, you get a whole different experience. First and foremost, you get to see our amazing visages on your video screen. It's pretty great. But beyond that, this doesn't sound like a selling point, but believe me, it is. We don't edit that video. Like, there it is. So you're going to see tangents that we go off on. You're going to see me mess up a bunch.
You're going to see me interrupt Jeff all the time.
Yep. I get to clean all that up and make it sound great when you're listening. But on YouTube, it's a lot of fun. Well, Paul Walter
YouTube. I'm interrupting. You know what I like to call YouTube? YouTube is the show about the show.
Ooh.
It's a whole different show about this show and how not Babylon 5, about this show, Babylon 5 for the first time, and how the show gets made. And it's awesome.
It's a show about the show that's about the show Babylon 5, I think.
Yes, the math on that works.
Yeah. Well, hey, one of our great YouTube viewers out there, Paul Walter, left a comment. I'm going to read just part of it here. Starts out, he says, back to B5. I love Mind War, mainly just for the tidbits it gives about Psychor. I bumped up against the effects too when I first watched it back in the aughts. I feel like you start forgiving the effects more when you get more involved in the show. But I really, really love the B plot leading to that great speech from Jakar. And this was from, obviously, our video for Mind War.
Paul, first of all, thank you for your comment. Thank you for bringing up a topic that I fully agree with you on. After watching the show for a while, you start forgiving those really bad effects and some of the bad acting and a lot of the bad script writing, because it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, Jeff and I are 2 Star Trek podcasting veterans. We're very familiar with bad acting and bad effects over painfully over a show that we love. And we know how awesome they can be at the same time. We know what it's really all about. That being said, when you're running a podcast and you're doing a review of the show 30 years down the line, a part of that is pointing out the stuff that doesn't hold up. And honestly, Jeff, I think that's the thing that answers our final question at the end of every episode, which is, should we have watched it sooner? The answer is, yeah, we should have watched it before we realized it sucked. And I mean, all that other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The acting, all that stuff. But honestly, though, Brent, I mean, you and I were around when this first came out. I don't think this held up when it first came out either. I mean, it was pioneering. It was groundbreaking. CG wasn't happening at this level yet, but I think there was a reason it wasn't happening at this level yet.
I wasn't watching sci-fi that much back then, but I do remember watching shows like Home Improvement and noting like their hairstyles and their clothing styles and going, this is never going to feel old. This is never going to feel old. And then you go back and watch it now and you're like, oh my gosh, this feels so old. So I imagine that really could be the same thing with a lot of the sci-fis. Oh man, this looks so good. This is so great. And then you go back later and you go, no, it does not. So I don't know. That's just my experience.
I think it's a good response. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for interacting and commenting. I love the communities that are growing, and thank you for welcoming us into your communities. It's great to be able to interact with all of you. You know what else is great, though, Brent?
What's that?
The fun games that we play on this podcast.
We have a lot of games on the show.
We do have a lot.
Which one are we going into now?
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. Well, it's that game that we love to play where we guess what this episode, we share what we guessed last week, what this episode was going to be about. So I guessed that this was going to just shine a little more light on the Sinclair Minbari war, like that 24-hour period that that Sinclair doesn't know what happens. We're starting to learn more of what did I say? I think I said something like Delenn will find out. Delenn will know that Sinclair knows what Delenn knows, and then everyone will know. That's what I thought this one was going to be about. What about you?
Well, hold on now. You weren't wrong.
I know.
You weren't wrong. Like, I mean, now granted, it was, I don't even know if it was a B plot. It was the C plot or something like that. But
it was 18 seconds of this episode. Right. But it was a piece of it.
But it was a piece of it. A very direct Sinclair recruiting Garibaldi to figure out more of what's going on with the whole deal. And what did we find out ultimately with that, if I remember right, is that it was the Minbari who put Sinclair in charge of the station.
Yeah.
After that whole situation. So that's one more piece of the puzzle. All right. So I guess for me, what did I say? I said something to the effect of this one was going to be about the ambassadors. So check, because it certainly was more about the ambassadors than it was about Home Guard or Psi Corps or anybody like that. I said that it was going to show a Centauri Narn war connection to the Minbari Earth War. I'm going to put not sure yet next to that one, right?
Oh, maybe. A little maybe.
Maybe. It still could happen. It didn't disprove it at all. But I said that this was going to be the narrative hook of the whole show and that this would foreshadow where we're going in future seasons. And given the fact that the dude went around going, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And he made everybody voice what they wanted. I've got to believe this is going to be a big piece that plays out over the next bunch of seasons, and that this actually is the narrative hook of the show as a whole, because we know that JMS had the whole thing in mind, right? Beginning, middle, and end. So I'm gonna go with nailed it, sort of.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah,
like
we both got partial credit on this one.
Right. Like this will be one of those we'll look back in 100 episodes from now and go, hey, I was right, or I was not at all. We'll figure it out. But with that, Jeff, let's actually discuss what this week's episode was about. Let's get into it. Signs and portents. For those that may have not watched this episode in a while, or those who haven't watched the show at all anyway, but you're just listening to us because you like the sound of our voices, or if you're on YouTube, you like the way we look. Jeff, remind us what this episode was about precisely.
When a Bene Gesserit from David Lynch's Dune comes onto the station, you know some stuff is about to go down. And go down it does. We meet Morden, and not the Solarian from Mass Effect, somebody shrouded in even more mystery than he is. Morden is from the Rim and is on a mission to meet with all the ambassadors, except Sinclair. And he's here to ask them one teeny tiny, little, simple, innocuous question. What do you want? There's no big surprises in the answers, but Delenn and Kosh clearly know a lot more about this guy than anybody else does. Sinclair isn't left out, though. His plate runneth over. He talks to Garibaldi about his realizations and the stress he's having about his missing 24 hours with the Minbari, and asks him to do his magic and learn what he can. He wants him to launch an investigation. And what Garibaldi learns, pretty huge. Not only did the Minbari only agree to be a part of Babylon 5, the project itself, on the condition that they got final say on who the station commander was, but they rejected a long list of admirals and other big shots until they got to Sinclair. So why? Well, nobody knows yet, including Garibaldi. Sinclair's also dealing with a growing raider threat. They're hitting ships further and further out, further than they should be able to do so. Now, you remember that Bene Gesserit that I mentioned? Well, she's actually a Centauri, prophet and seer, Lady Ladira, and she's traveling with Lord Kiro, who's a big shot among the Centauri. He and the Centauri government had Londo find a lost artifact, the Eye, which is a cultural icon and carries a lot of political power. Londo was supposed to deliver that to Kiro, and Kiro is supposed to deliver that to the Emperor. Kiro has plans of his own. Lady Ladira is overcome with visions the moment she steps foot on the station. She sees death, pain, destruction, pain, and pain. She also claims to have seen Lord Kiro's death as far back as like his first birthday. He's apparently gonna be killed by the shadows. But Kiro's plans are thwarted. Some guy that we've seen slinking around the station the whole time holds the Centauri delegation hostage and leads them to their ship. Sinclair and security intercept them, and they let the hostage taker take Kiro and the Eye to the ship with a plan to go cut them off. Sinclair and Ivanova are tracking down this Raider threat. In a very well orchestrated attack, their command and control ship creates its own jump gate, because apparently that can happen, right outside the station and launches an attack on the station itself. We get an epic 90s CG space battle where they destroy most of the Raider ships, but the CNC ship is able to not only get away through its own jump gate, but they're able to get away with Lord Kiro and the Eye. Kiro has been working with the Raiders the whole time. His plan for the Eye is unthwarted until, that is, Raider guy betrays him and locks him up. He's not only going to sell the Eye, but ransom Kiro too. Thwarted again. But then Raider guy's plans are thwarted. They come out of the jump gate and a big old black blob is waiting for him. Blasts them out of the sky, everyone dies, and the Eye is lost to oblivion. Or was it? Somehow, Morden got his hands on it, delivers it to Londo, who had basically given up on his career. Now, he's feeling good, he's got his career in check, and honestly might have even saved his life. The episode ends with Ladira doing a mind meld with Sinclair, showing him the possible future where Babylon 5 is destroyed. Brent, what did you think of Signs and Portents?
That dirty, rotten Kiro. I knew it. Can never trust him. Whenever you see that actor playing somebody, unless he's playing a suicidal member of the Q continuum.
You're right.
He's no good. He's just no good. He's a bad dude. He's a bad dude. He's always going to be a bad dude. That's just how he rolls. Jeff, I had one statement as an opening thought here, and it was this. This feels like it is a super important game-shifting episode for the show. It's exactly what I said, in my thing last week, which frankly, I forgot about it until we went into the thing for tonight. But it had that feeling about it. Like everything felt like this wasn't just a plot line or a storyline that's going to be resolved by the end of this episode. You know what I mean? Like this one felt like it's going to be around for a while. So I overall enjoyed this episode. Actually, I think I enjoyed this episode a lot, but we'll get into the messages and stuff a little bit later, but yeah, there were a few things that jumped out to me. We'll get into that in a minute. But before I do that, Jeff, tell me what you thought of this episode watching it for the first time.
So this is the 13th episode. So, just to make it easy, we'll say the 13th hour. And I feel like the first 12 hours of this were basically just the prologue. This is the actual first episode of the series. That's what I felt. I don't want to say a reset button. Like it wasn't as extreme as a reset button,
right, by
any means. But I feel like it was like, hey, so we've been building this stuff up and connecting you with characters and introducing you to some concepts. Here's the actual story now. Right. Oh, also there's this like, I don't know, black blob thing with Morden attached to it. Mm-hmm. This literally felt to me like chapter 1. That was my big note. So much happened. Yep. This is the beginning of the story.
You know what other story does that? People don't believe me. People love to make fun of it. And people are going to make fun of me when they hear me say this. And I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. It's one of my favorite movie franchises of all time.
Okay.
It's a movie franchise that you have to forget every law of physics that actually exists. Pop some popcorn, munch on it while you're eating it, and just have a good time. I am, of course, talking about the Fast and the Furious franchise. In the last movie where they went to outer space.
Did they really?
Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert. It was in the previews, Jeff. They went
I don't watch
to outer space. Listen, guys, it's one of the top grossing franchises of all time for a reason. You guys make fun of all you want. It's a fantastic series. The themes that they get in, like you watch that with a critical eye as a Star Trek podcaster, Jeff, there's some deep stuff in the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yeah, family. There's family.
It's all about
right?
it. That's the biggest thing. You know, what do you do for family when people come in and out, when people betray you, or you think that they're betraying you, but they're not, or whatever it is? What do you do with all of that? That movie franchise, the storyline that it told, if you go back and you really watch it, it didn't get started till movie 4.
Yeah.
And it makes numbers 1, 2, and 3 really feel more like prologue. Like, oh, it's not been about racing since the 3rd movie. Yeah, you're right. Because that's not actually what the movie franchise is really about. That's all prequel stuff. The real show is here. Relate that back to this. I think you put exactly what I said in much better words.
Oh,
I think we're in full agreement on this. This is a game-changing episode. This is a game-shifting episode. You're saying this is chapter 1. Everything else was prequel up to this point. And
yeah,
I agree with you. Jeff, let's walk through the episode a little bit, though.
Yeah, but just to tie a bow on it, Brent Allen just said Babylon 5 is the Fast and the Furious. So there you go.
Exactly. When Vin Diesel shows up in this show, you'll know what I'm talking about, man. You'll know what I'm talking about.
But yes, let's dive into this episode.
All right. I'm just going to say this out loud. I have never once in my life ever described morning breath as tasting like old carpet.
That whole scene was incredible. Everything about it. Again, because it's Ivanova, right? She's going to take anything and elevate the whole thing.
Who wakes up in the morning beautiful.
But with carpet breath.
With carpet breath.
Old carpet breath.
Like, I mean, they didn't mess up her hair. She still had makeup on. You know, I'm like, because she probably, before she goes to bed, she gets ready, because you never know when an emergency is going to happen, and she's got to roll out of bed into her uniform. There you go.
Get right to work.
There you go. She's going through. Do you want me to read the station logs while you're asleep? No. Yeah. Like she does to her Alexa what I do to mine. You know, like I give you some smart Alec response, and like Alexa doesn't understand it. She's like, okay, just give it to me.
Just do it. But I think it was interesting too when Sinclair kind of razzes her she gets up to CNC, and she's like, "Oh, it's just hard for me to wake up when it's still dark." It's like, well, it's always dark in space. But a part of me wonders, like, is this going to be a thing for her? You know, I mean, she's been pretty kind of a beyond reproach in a lot of ways as a professional. And like, is this kind of the first chip in her armor where like she's really having to oh my gosh. So here's what we know now. We know that she hates waking up and getting started. We know she's illegally growing coffee. Does that turn into, I don't know, does that turn into something at some point?
She's got her own thing. She does whatever she wants on the station, and she bullies people around because she's Ivanova.
Because she can.
Because she can do it. She's awesome. All right. Dude walking through the bay at the beginning. Like, this is the rule on Babylon 5, right? Like, that's the bad guy. Now, I don't know if Morden actually is a bad guy by the end of this. Like, I really don't know. He feels like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really feels like it, but I don't know. But you know, coming in, like, that's going to be your guy throughout the course of the episode. You got to keep an eye on.
I have a lot of questions about that guy, and I'm not, I mean, I can ask him. We're not going to get answers for a long time, but
what are they?
He avoids Kosh, right? The first time he sees him, he ducks away. And then the second time Kosh is like, they're not for you. And begs him off. Delenn freaks out. And then you called this, and her triangle starts showing.
Her little Triforce.
Uh-huh. All of a sudden, she turns into a 12-year-old boy in middle school who's asked to come to the board and explain his work. And she's like, I can't. My triangle is showing.
He went there. Oh, my
I did.
God. Yes, this is a family-friendly show, buddy.
I just said triangle. It's going to be fine.
All the parents out there know exactly what Jeff's talking about. All the kids are like, what's he talking about, Mom? What's he talking about? Yeah. Go ask your dad, kid. Yeah. You're right. You know what? But she says an interesting line in that moment. She says, they're here. Like, he walks out. She goes, they're here. So this begs a bigger question. Who is they? And
were they going to be coming all along? Right. Because I almost got the impression that she was like, I mean, she didn't say this, but I got the impression of they're already here.
Yeah.
Like, or they're here now. And
Right.
Like, so was this an expected thing? Maybe, your theory around the Vorlon specifically kind of being masterminds, puppet masters above everything,
Yep.
and the Minbari on the side kind of being ahead of everything. Are they maybe preparing all the other, species for some sort of a reckoning? And this is where it starts. And she's like, oh my God, they're here. It's starting.
Is this related to what the Minbari learned from Sinclair when they put the hole in his mind and then they pulled back? Who are they? What is like, because this guy's obviously human, right?
Well, I don't know. He looks human.
I mean, we're at least supposed to, we're supposed to believe that he's human.
I think so.
But something about him made that thing, like, she lost control. So that's something I guess we learned a little bit, was they've got this glowy triangle thing in their head that it's not a tattoo. It's not makeup she's using to cover it up. It's like bioluminescent. And she lost control over the like, she couldn't turn it off.
It's literally her Kelpian threat ganglia. Right? When Saru feels danger, he has the little ganglia that pop out. I mean, maybe it's not. That's sure what it looked like to me. And she felt it too, because she was talking and she had it came up and she had a physical reaction and she's like, no.
They're here. She's figured something out. I mean, or is this guy a Cylon?
Yeah.
Is he a Cylon? Like, he looks like human, but maybe he's actually artificial. Or, oh my gosh, what Commander O and all those people were doing, trying to open up the sky and let the AI in to come. And yes, that's totally a Star Trek reference. Go ahead and buzz me. It's that idea. Oh, is this Babylon 5 and Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek all like, they're all in the same universe and they're converging?
What I wonder too, there have been earlier instances where Mass Effect, the video game series, has directly mirrored stuff in Babylon 5. Is the big overarching threat in Mass Effect are these Reapers, these big, blobby, black, synthetic beings that come through and they wipe out all organic life every 50,000 years. Was this the inspiration for the Reapers in Mass Effect? And Morden is their sovereign, right? He's the one who comes out first. He's actually an AI,
right? He's a whatever kind of Reaper. Stargate goes into that a little bit as well with the Wraiths in Stargate Atlantis, and some other things. So that's very much a sci-fi trope, Jeff. And with Babylon 5 being one of the very early sci-fi shows out there, because I mean, prior to Babylon 5, you had a little bit of Star Trek. That's not a reference. That's a fact. You had Doctor Who. I mean,
well, then you have like your Buck Rogers and your Lost in Space, but your little
Battlestar Galacticas, but this is where those things really start taking off. And we've seen that idea a handful of times throughout a lot of sci-fi, of what you just said, of this ancient race comes through every so often and wipes everybody out and starts over or something of that nature.
Yeah. And is that this? Because like in Mass Effect, they leave the what they call lesser developed species to kind of restart the cycle.
Yeah.
Were the Minbari and Vorlon the lesser developed species that were left last time? And so they're ahead of the curve.
Oh, yeah.
And so now they're being like, hello, look at us, please, we're going to beat it this time.
Right.
But now there's questions I was interested though in how her reaction was clearly afraid. Like she was clearly scared of what was happening. Whereas Kosh was trying to manage them. He's like, no, they are not yours, and tried to shut him down. And Morden,
I'm going to have to go back and watch Kosh's response to that, because I don't remember what you're talking about right now, but I'll go back and watch it. So go ahead.
Dude, because I feel like he was pretty firm with him. And I think the fact that Morden ran and hid from him initially, like he wanted to make sure he hit all the ambassadors before, like Kosh was going to be last. Like that had to happen. And then Kosh tried to shut him down.
Hey, so I had this as a note. I said, dude is totally going to kill Kosh.
Really? Oh,
that's the way it came across to me.
Especially the way when he tucked away and he was like, it's like he was like scoping him a little bit.
Yeah. I was like, he's going to kill this guy. That's what I thought of when I saw him kind of doing his thing. So I had this guy confused for most of the episode. To be fair, I watched this episode twice. We see a guy coming through the cargo bay who's being kind of shady as he comes in. A couple of scenes later, we see a dude randomly walk into a bar and meet Londo and hand him a box.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the same guy the first time I watched it. And then later we see this guy tailing, subject is on the move. I found him. I got eyes on that guy, right?
Yep.
And now he was blonde haired or something of that nature.
A little shaggier.
Yeah, a little shaggier. Absolutely not the same person. To me, watching it for the very first time, I was like, who is this guy? What is he doing? I thought all of those people were the same guy. Again, I watched it a second time, realized they're all different. But did you track that? Because I really thought they were all the same. And it had me so confused the first time I watched it.
I had a similar journey. Second time, it made a lot more sense, because I knew who people were. But the first time when they started, I think they were trailing Kiro. And the first time he's like, 6-1, we've got subject on the move, whatever. Oh, no, it was Londo with the eye coming through. And I again thought it was, and I'm like, oh, it's Morden. And then when Morden ends up intercepting Londo to ask his question, I thought he's going to kill Londo. Like, he's going to try and kill him and steal this thing. So I really made up this whole separate storyline in my head about basically somebody trying to kill Londo and steal the eye. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it very confusing. And I don't know that it was that those people looked very similar or that they just didn't do a lot to differentiate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because they all were playing mysterious person we've never seen before, slinking around, so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just odd. I think that the guy he bought the eye from, like there in that first scene, they even played him weird, right? And what'd you have to do to get this? Yep. Yeah. And then there's a whole conversation about how they paid him enough to buy a small planet, and he's like, "Well, you don't want to know what we're gonna do with this." And then you don't want to know how. And so it's like, ooh, there's this dark, mysterious guy that stuff's going on with, but apparently not. Apparently he's just here to do a transaction. Apparently.
So let's talk about, so there's the dude who's just there to do a transaction. It was the only scene that he popped up in. We didn't see him for the rest of the episode
at all.
Never seen him before. Okay. So he's just a guy who's a merchant, a black market merchant, right?
Yeah.
You were getting ready to press the button because you thought I was going to make a reference.
I did.
I saw you doing it. I saw you doing it. But the other guys, okay, and I just want to make sure I got this right.
Okay.
So the guys that were tailing them, 6-1, I've got eyes on whatever. Those guys were the raiders.
Yes.
On the state, like you had raiders drawing people away.
Yeah.
And then these guys were also part of the raiders, the pirates or whatever. And they're different from the dude asking everybody what he wants. They're different from Morden.
Totally separate. They don't cross paths in any way.
Right. So the raiders that are out there are humans.
Yes. At least that we see.
It's off-Earth humans out there doing stuff. So does Earth, and by extension Sinclair and the Babylon 5 guys, do they feel a responsibility for going out and are these guys the Maquis of Babylon 5?
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, you're Federation citizens. We got to go get you. You're doing bad stuff.
Such a good question, because when I think about what they're doing, they're pirates, right? They're trying to intercept cargo ships headed to Babylon 5, but we haven't seen a lot of them, but every single one we've seen is human. So is there some sort of schism that happened in humanity and on Earth where they're doing this? Are there other raiders that are alien? I think what this episode showed for me, though, is that the raiders aren't just a group of, criminals out doing stuff. They are very well organized. They're financed. They have long-term planning.
They have ships that create their own jump points.
Yeah.
Or they have a ship that does.
Yeah, well, they had.
I was going to say, at least we should. Because so here's the other question. Did they all go boom? Are the raiders all gone now?
Well, I think all of them on that ship. The raider guy was talking about how they, from the selling the eye and ransoming Kiro, they were going to be able to buy 2 or 3 more of these big. So there are clearly more raiders out there if they're going to, staff up 2 or 3 more command and control ships out there. So maybe this is just a small group going out to finance the next big project, sort of a thing.
So who blew them up?
That's the question.
Was it Kosh? I put down Kosh.
Really?
Or the dude who wants.
The Morden guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
One of the two.
We saw Kosh's ship in this one, and it reminded me of the light ship in the first Tron with kind of like the big open like sail almost, and the like reverse sail in the background that came in. The big black blobby thing that came through, and we saw the other Vorlon ship when it blew up Deathwalker. When it blew Deathwalker up, we saw it come. This didn't look at all like a Vorlon ship. It didn't look like anything I'd seen before, and it just very menacing. It looked huge.
Yeah, it looked new. It looked like something we've not seen before.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about spaceships, I'm gonna change topics on us. All right, okay. I got two thoughts on these things. One, I realized in watching this episode, I'm not really entirely sure where these cargo bays are. Now, we just had a whole episode dedicated to cargo bays or docking bays or whatever. I'm not really sure where they are on the station or how big they are or how many of these things they have. So somebody out there in comments, you guys know, don't spoil anything, but let me know. Like, like I'm trying to figure out how these things work because what they're flying into looks huge.
Yeah. And it was just a few episodes ago where it might have even been the last episode was the first time we actually, it might even be this episode now that I think about it. Yeah, it was this episode that we actually saw the whole station. Before this, we'd just kind of see that ball rotating piece and then little sections. Like we'd see the, the windshield where Ivanova stands. We'd see the thing. This time they backed up to a point where the first time I was watching it, I thought the Centauri had a different big ship they were doing stuff on and they were showing. And then finally I realized, oh no, there's that little round ball tip on the thing. We've only been seeing a small portion of Babylon 5 this whole time.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. It's finally happened to me, Jeff. I want to know more about these Star Furies. For the first time, like I looked at these ships and they didn't look stupid to me.
They're kind of cool.
Like up till this point, to be frank, the Star Furies have looked dumb. They've looked like little toy Matchbox. Like these things are not powerful. These things aren't whatever. In this episode, for whatever reason, Ivanova goes and takes off. I was like, I want to know more about these Star Furies. They look kind of neat. They look kind of cool, man. They kind of got that X-Wing, that Star Wars X-Wing feel to them a little bit. Did you see them? Like, did the X like raise and lower at some point? I think I saw it. I wasn't entirely sure, but I think I saw it do it.
I noticed it first in And the Sky Full of Stars, but like their maneuverability is really great. The gun, like the weapons placement is cool. Like the design is great, except for one, to me, glaring design error. And that is what is the very foremost thing, the frontest thing in those Star Furies? The pilot.
Right.
Like there's literally this glass in the pilot and they're the most forward thing. Like we're going to talk about the X-Wing design. That pilot sits almost all the way back in there. So when they're shooting, blasting, whatever, them getting hit's pretty unlikely. Getting a direct shot through your windshield seems pretty likely on the Star Fury. I wonder though what it feels like to launch. I love the launch.
Oh, that's so
they're all
cool.
showing points down.
Yeah.
I wonder what that feels like.
That's a roller coaster right there.
Totally.
That's a roller coaster. I've seen that before. I know that we've seen that on Babylon 5 before.
Yes. Yeah.
But like I say, for the first time though, I'm now interested. Maybe I've gotten past the bad effects and I'm like, okay, now I want to find out more about it. Or maybe they retooled the model. Maybe they redid something in the CG. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, like I'm coming in, guys. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm digging the show right now as we get into it.
I'll have to share. Maybe we'll have to share this comment off of YouTube. I'll just share a piece of it. But the team that does the effects for Babylon 5 at this point go on. I got to make sure I've got enough references for this. Okay. They go on.
I think you only have one more, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. And I think I'm going to be okay.
I still have two.
But they go on to do the effects for Deep Space Nine during the Dominion War. So those incredible space battles that happen in Deep Space Nine is the same crew that's doing Babylon 5 that we're watching right now.
Right, but that's the same crew 5 years earlier.
Exactly.
Because we didn't get those incredible space battles in DS9 until like mid to late 90s. Like 96, like 97, 98, right? Maybe even like 99. We're still in like 94. So we're a couple years. You know what else is happening at this time? Toy Story is being made.
Yeah.
Which was significant because that was the first fully computer animated film to ever come out. And once they did that, man, like that took the lid off of CG animation.
Yeah.
And what they could do with it, because it was just a handful of years later, we got Gollum and the motion capture. I mean, you remember how cool Gollum looked? Speaking of Lord of the Rings, 2 Lord of the Rings references in one show. Like he looked awesome. And you're like, I can't even tell the difference between him and the guy standing there. Usually you can. You couldn't then. Anyway, Jeff, I've got two more sets of topics I want to talk about. I don't know about you. One of them revolves around the actual main story of the Eye and Kiro and Londo and that whole deal, and dude asking, what do you want? And then the other one has to do with Sinclair and Garibaldi. Where do you want to go first? Or if you have a whole other third topic you want to talk about.
I got a third one, but it's a little smaller. But I want to talk about the Centauri. And so why don't you kick it off talking about the Eye in that piece?
Yeah. So the Eye of what was it?
The Eye.
The Eye, just the Eye. Hello, MacGuffin.
Right.
This is going to be the thing that moves the plot forward. Okay, weirdo lady, skeezy dude walking in. Let's talk about hair for just a moment.
Yes, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about.
She did not have the princess tail.
Yeah, not at all.
At all. Like, is there a certain age that women lose that or something? And then the other one was the dude. This might have just been makeup, might have been effects, might have been whatever. But, Londo's hair and most of the Centauri that we've seen so far, they get their hair and it sort of swoops back a little bit. This dude's was standing straight up. I mean, straight up. And like, do you get that? The more up it is that more lordly or something? Or
just how big it is. I was thinking about our old buddy Veer, who we haven't seen in 16 years. Right. But since he claimed to be an ambassador himself.
But he still has his name in the credits. Anyway.
He does. Yeah, still getting the pay. That's great. But he has just this little tiny, like, bloop, almost as if like I were to muss up the hair that's not where my bald spot is. And like that's Veer. And then Londo's got whoosh, this big like peacock thing going on. And then Kiro comes on, he's like, yeah, I'll see your peacock. And whoosh, double it. And it's huge. It's sticking straight up and it's massive. So is there status of some kind? Exactly that. Is there a status tied to your hair?
I think there is. And like, I don't know that direction of the hair has anything to do with this. Is probably Brent just picking up on stupid crap right now. But like, is this the first Lord we've met? So I think it's conceivable that there's something about how the hair goes. But I'm 100% with you on size.
Yeah.
Size of the crown is a very much a status symbol.
And maybe it's opposite for women, right? So Lady Ladira is a big shot. So she has nothing. Whereas the, what was her name? Adira, who we met in Born to the Purple, had that long top knot because, well, she's a slave.
Right. So they come in, they give them this eye. This eye apparently was lost or stolen during the Narn thing or some, it's been lost for a long time and it's a major symbol. But if I'm tracking the story right, it was owned by a particular family, yet somehow it's the representation of a particular emperor, but the family is not the emperor, or the emperor was not part of the family, or like, I don't know exactly what all it is, but they wanted to get this thing back.
Yeah. I tracked this like, and I mean, I know it's not familiar for you, but maybe this will be familiar enough, but I track it in terms of Dune, where there's different houses that go across. And just in this case, through whatever mechanism there is, it sounds like for Kiro, the mechanism is going to be, groundswell support and having the eye, but who the ruling house, the emperor or the ruling house can change. But it just so happens that the emperor during the time of the eye was part of Kiro's house and was wildly popular. And it became kind of a sign of Centauri dominance to the point that he thinks if he walks on the planet today with the eye, they'll put him right into the emperor's throne.
You say Dune. I think Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
There was a really poignant moment between these two, between Kiro and Londo. And we've seen Londo very much lament the fate of the Centauri multiple times now.
He does it in this episode when he's talking to Morden.
And that's, and what was it, Morden? He does when he's talking to Morden. But Kiro asks him this question: where did it all go wrong? Where did we lose it? Or where did we lose it all? Right. And Londo just goes, I don't know. Like, that felt like such an important moment for the character, and just a solidifying moment of just like defining who they feel like they've lost something. They were the big schnees in the galaxy, or at least they felt they were. My guess is the Minbari and the Vorlon were kind of like, yeah, you're not.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you, kid. Yeah.
Oh, you're good. You're special. Yeah. Go ahead. But they really thought they were, and now they're not. And was it right? Was it not right? Whatever. They're very much lamenting that loss. And to, I guess, then go back to the whole idea of what do you want? What do you want? And can we walk through what the different answers were by the different ambassadors?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's probably important. Let's start with Londo since we're talking about him. Londo said, I want everything back the way it used to be.
He says, I want to see the Centauri stretch forth their hand again and command the stars. I want a rebirth of glory, a renaissance of power. I want to stop running through my life like a man late for an appointment, afraid to look back or look forward. Goes on and on, but basically he wants to be on top again.
Yeah. So then Jakar, you went and talked to Jakar?
Yeah, Jakar's got deep real at the very end, but it starts out just...
He is seething.
Yeah. And it starts out
seething.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He says, I want to suck the marrow from their bones and grind their skulls to powder, tear down their cities, blacken their sky, sow their ground with salt to completely and utterly erase them. But then he goes on to say, as long as my home planet is safe, then all will be fine. Like it came down to just keeping the home world safe.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that was really, really deep.
Right. So then he goes to Kosh, or he tried to go to Kosh.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, he went to Kosh last. He hid from Kosh, but he went to Delenn next.
Okay, fair. And Delenn freaked out. We talked about that a little bit. Delenn had a full-on freak out moment.
Yep.
Right. Did she ever actually answer the question? I don't think she did.
No.
Yeah. But that's where she left him going, they're here.
And then Kosh just shut him down. These people are not for you.
What does that mean? These people are not for you. Yeah. Speculate with me, Jeff.
So I think it goes back to your theory on the Vorlon kind of being the puppet masters and maybe the Minbari being there as well. But it's about who gets to control the fate of the galaxy. Really, who gets to be on top. And I think the Vorlon have a very long game that they're playing here for complete galactic or universal dominance on this. But these Morden people they're probably the biggest barrier to that. And so like Kosh is coming to be like, no, we've put in the work. We've been here doing this stuff. You do not get to swoop in here and take all this. I mean, what do you think on it?
Well, what I find interesting is that what Kosh said was these people are not for you, as you say, right? Like, what's he trying to do with these people? Is he trying to collect them? Is he a part of this shadows thing? Remember that what's her face was like, the shadows are here to get you, right? Like is that what it is? The shadows. What are the shadows? Are these two, again, I go back to that question. Are they actually Earthlings? Do they just look like Earthlings? Like, what's their deal? And I think we're supposed to be questioning all of them. Like, are these guys really the big bad of the series and the Vorlon and the Minbari are trying to protect everybody? Like, what are they doing? Like this has to, I think, be the question that you come out of this episode with.
Yeah, like maybe, here we go. Maybe the sign is that the Vorlon and the Minbari are shepherding, protecting, preparing something, all these other species. The portent is that there are these shadows out there who can just sweep in and wipe it all away. So is it going to be Vorlon Minbari through Babylon 5, bringing everyone together versus the Morden, the shadows, I guess? Because I think if we connect the dots on Lady Ladera, that big blobby thing that blew up the Raider ship was the shadow. Oh. Right? Because she said that Lord Kira would be killed by the shadows, and that's what happened. And they sure looked shadowy. Right.
I want to find out what the shadows are. Stupid. No spoilers, everybody. We'll find out in our own time.
Well, I think it's fair. I think this would be fair. If the shadow, don't tell us if Morden is a shadow. Don't give it that away. But if that big black ship that blew up the thing and killed Lord Kira, was that a shadow? You can tell us that. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's definitely the big question. I think though, back to the Centauri really quick, just the last question I had with them. How much stinking money do these people have? Right? I mean, they pay enough for a small planet to get the eye. Kiro is giving the Raiders enough money they can buy this massive ship that can make its own jump gates. We see Londo just the ducats he was throwing around for Garibaldi in Survivors. Like, how much money? If they're a crumbling empire, right, which we're kind of been led to believe, I don't see them throwing cash around the way that we've been seeing them do this whole time.
Or they're just printing their own cash.
There's that, yeah.
All right, I have a theory.
Okay.
While you've been talking, I have a theory. Because to go on with the Minbari, or not the Minbari, I'm sorry, the Centauri, dude comes in at the end with the eye. and just hands it to him. And Londo's like, let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a whole barrel full of drinks. And he's like the voice, don't contact me, ambassador. We'll contact you when it's time. Okay, I'm putting something together. The shadows are going to kill Kiro. Is he a part of the shadows? Kosh says these people are not for you. Is he trying, or is he like Sloan, Agent Sloan? Is he trying to recruit all these people into the shadows? Right? Like he's trying to recruit. Like is he testing them or something to see if they're like the shadows is some sort of an organization instead of like weird AI? Like what you're saying, like what if it's just some weird organization, and that's where Kosh goes, these people are not for you. They're not going to go into your organization. And
well, I think it might go deeper than that, because I think this has taken some stuff out a couple steps, but Minbari have a potential secret agent that they're developing in Sinclair. Some reason they want him there. They put a hole in his mind all the 24 hours. So Minbari have Sinclair. Right. Kosh went and did that whole horrible, painful thing with the Vicar to get blackmail material for Talia, who's got the in with Psycor and Earth. So now Kosh has Talia. Are the Shadows now, or Morden, trying to have the Centauri and have Londo? So basically, all of the major players in Babylon 5 are either a shadow puppet for someone or are a puppet for someone else. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, it gets deep.
I feel like we've done this almost every episode for the last couple of weeks. Are the Shadows the big bad of the show?
Yeah.
Or are the Shadows connected to Psycor?
I don't think this is a show that's going to have a singular big bad. I think this is a show that's going to have a very, very tangled web. And there might be kind of a queen spider or something on the web, kind of pulling stuff together.
I hope not.
Yeah, we don't. I have a great reference that I cannot use, but if you happen to have some sort of a hive mind of some sort, and then all of a sudden had one that can, if that were to happen in Babylon 5, it'd be terrible.
Just like in the movie Ender's Game.
Okay, yes,
just go with that.
Thank you. I like that.
Or pick any sci-fi show that does hive mind stuff, because it all kind of works the same way. Yeah, Jeff. So this episode introduced us to what is potentially a very huge character for the show.
Yeah.
And I am just delighting so much right now in the fact that our listeners out there and our folks on YouTube are squirming in their seats.
Yep. They hate us. They hate us right now.
2 minutes. And you're not allowed to stay, guys. Don't tell us. Please, for the love of all that's good and holy, don't tell us if we're right. Don't tell us if we're wrong. Don't tell us if we're on the right track. Just go, I can't say anything. Please, no spoilers whatsoever. Jeff.
Hold on, I just want to trigger everybody really quick. You know what, Brent? I don't think this episode's really going to mean much of anything. It's probably just a throwaway.
I don't think anybody believes you at all. I was going to ask, do you have anything else about this episode you want to talk before we wrap it up?
We have to talk about the greatest scene in, I don't know, maybe all television ever of all time.
Okay.
Waiting for the elevator. You've got Londo standing here. You've got Jakar standing here. And you've got just this poor guy stuck in the middle of them.
Yes.
That was incredible. That was so good. And that poor guy. So I don't think.
I just want to go to work, y'all.
Yeah.
I just want to go to work.
He's just looking uncomfortable. It literally, I'm just like, hey, if you ever wonder what a non-speaking role looks like and can be used to, watch this scene. And he does a great job where he's just like, oh, this is uncomfortable. They're getting bigger. They're getting louder. They're crunching him in. It's just, it's such a great scene. But there was one line in there that blew my mind where Jakar says, you can kiss my pouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that. What is that? Are they like kangaroo marsupials or what's the deal?
Somebody gave a little spoiler in the comments. Shame.
No,
yeah.
Don't spoil. Are you going to spoil me?
No. This
I might have missed this one. Go ahead.
But they just said that Jakar's not a reptile. They're not lizards. The Narn are marsupials.
I said it.
Yeah.
They're marsupials, like a kangaroo.
Exactly.
How, really?
But
Marsupials?
Yeah, so I'm on one hand, I'm like, oh, when he said it, I was like, oh, they told me the answer. But also, I'm like, if I was watching this for the first time, completely unspoiled, I would have paused that, rewound it, and been, what? kiss my, huh?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I just loved that it escalated to that level. And this is how we're going to learn what the Narn really are, is Jakar just being mad enough to
kiss my pouch.
And does Jakar have a pouch? I don't know how marsupials work. Is that a male or female thing? I'm sure we'll find out.
All right. So, I guess two more things. So Minbari putting Sinclair in charge. I don't know that there's much to talk about, but just to note, they passed on everybody and put him in charge.
And big shots too, like admirals and people with a lot of know, clout.
Sinclair was way down on the list.
I loved Garibaldi's, because Sinclair's like, I probably wasn't very high up, and Garibaldi's like, yeah, no, not at all.
Right. The shadow. You know what the shadows thing feels like? How many references do I have left, Matt?
I think you have one. I've lost track.
Okay, I'm gonna use it. This feels like that episode of Deep Space Nine where Quark goes to the Gamma Quadrant and he's talking to somebody like, look, if you want to do business in the Gamma Quadrant, you got to do business with the Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's find out what that's all about. And that's the only word that they said in that entire episode. It was the very first time we ever heard the word Dominion in the run of the show. Is this the very first time we've heard the word shadows in the run of the show? I think it is.
Mm-hmm. It is 100%.
They said it a couple of more times in this particular episode, but not a ton. I wonder if this is that like introduction of that idea. And here's the thing. Lady, what's her name?
Ladira.
I wanted to say Lavinia, but that's a character from another story that I'm involved in. Lady Ladira says at the end, well, she says she saw the shadows coming. She saw the end of everything, but she says at the end, the future isn't set in stone.
Yep.
We make the future, which is huge because Jeff, it is now that time. Let's boil it down. Let's talk about it. What are your closing comments? Let's bring that Star Trek message, dude. Not even the Star Trek message. Just apply that lens, apply that filter of hope of tomorrow, holding up a mirror to society, something. Analyze this show for us. How many deltas you got? And should we have watched it sooner, Jeff?
I'm going to throw this one to you to go first, because I've got some thoughts on it, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Great. Your thoughts are probably better than mine.
I don't know about that.
Mine are this. I honestly didn't pick up a whole lot because I was so absorbed in everything else going on with the show. This show had so much happening to it. The best one I can probably come with is what we just finished on, was this future isn't set in stone. I mean, this was the lesson of Back to the Future. The future is what you make of it. I feel like we've probably seen that in Star Trek a couple of times. I know we've seen it in Stargate. I know we've seen it in Battlestar Galactica. I know we've seen it in Pick a Show. The future's it's not set in stone. Nothing's etched forever. So is that really a message? Maybe, maybe not. How Star Trek is this episode? I give it, gosh, in terms of the message and all of that sort of stuff, it's like a 2, but you change a few characters on this and you throw it in, and this very much feels like a Star Trek episode to me.
Yeah.
In many ways, yes, this feels like a very Star Trek episode. So I'm going to give it 2 deltas with a little hashtag by it could be a good Star Trek episode too, though.
Wow. Okay.
That's my thought.
So I don't know that mine are going to, yeah, I don't know if mine are going to be any better. I feel like this episode until the last 2 minutes had no Star Trek in it whatsoever.
We've had a few episodes like that on Babylon 5.
Yeah, but just kind of the last second kind of comes in and saves it. And I think that the Star Trek that it had in it was aspirational at best. As aspirational, Star Trek being aspirational. And it was literally that message you just said, that we get to decide our own future. I recently had an episode on my Star Trek podcast, Starfleet Leadership Academy, come out on Enterprise's season 2 finale, The Expanse.
Mm-hmm.
That episode's important for a lot of reasons, but one that I talk about a lot is when T'Pol, who's Vulcan, decides to defy Vulcan High Command, and she wants to stay on Enterprise, even though they want her to go back to Vulcan. One decision that she makes right there, one little choice, sets the entire series on a different path. Mm-hmm. All sorts of things happen because she chooses to stay. There are other episodes of Star Trek that are very similar. I won't give away anything here, but the season finale of Strange New Worlds focuses on how one minor choice can have major impacts. When Ladira does the mind meld thing and shows Sinclair the destruction of Babylon 5. And she says, this is one of many possible futures. That again, and we're making a lot of references to other franchises on here, but that rings of Dune and the prescience that Paul Atreides Muad'Dib shows, and then Leto II as the God Emperor, where they see just endless possibilities. And they try to steer society and the world and the universe on a direction to what they see as the best possible future. They can see them all. The Star Trek message in all of this is that the choices we make matter. They matter.
Ooh.
That's the message. And that's a big message to me.
Yeah.
I feel like I had to pull that message out of it, though. And it wasn't at all apparent. It wasn't really a part of the episode. I am giving this a reluctant single delta because of that one message that our choices matter, which is huge. But I had to work to get that message.
Yeah, it wasn't bonk you over the head as some are.
Yeah. Well, Brent, that's it. We just did Signs and Portents. Oh my gosh.
This was a thick episode, Jeff.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit of a longer episode than normal, even when you edit it out. But
yeah, we've gone pretty long, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff left on the table, right? And so be sure to, if you're on YouTube, hit us in the comments. If you're not, hit us on Twitter. Even if you are on Twitter at Babylon First, we're happy to talk more and more about this, the things we missed. Please, oh my goodness, please don't spoil. Don't give it away.
Just tell us how much you're squirming.
Yeah.
Just tell us how much you're squirming, or tell us how much you're laughing at us right now. Like whatever it is, but don't tell us what's up.
Yeah, please don't. But Brent, next week here, again, we don't want spoilers from you. We don't want spoilers from looking ahead. So when we look at the next episode, we look at the title and nothing else. Brent, the next episode is called TKO. Based on that and that alone, what do you think this one's going to be about? TKO.
Oh gosh, if this is Chakotay boxing in a dream, this show just took like 6 steps forward out of this past episode. That one would make it go 8 steps backwards.
Easily, yeah.
Easily. What did TKO? I feel like this is going to be a not very consequential episode.
Okay.
Like a palate cleanser type of an episode. Like after this big heavy one that's got a lot of stuff in it, I feel like this one's got to be a lot more fun. We might look back and like, this is a fun episode. It'll be a favorite episode just because of how fun it is. But that's probably about the length of what it'll be. What it actually is, I can't think of anything other than boxing right now, honestly. So,
well, it's not far from my guess. Jakar and Londo finally go at it. That's what I think is going to happen. And when Londo drops for the 3rd time, a little dude with a mustache is going to come out and say, TKO.
10 points for the punch out reference.
Yeah, right. Jeff. No, honestly, I think I'll tell you what I want it to be, but I know it won't be this. I want it to be about like some sort of like underground combat sports thing, and maybe Sinclair or even Ivanova like have to go, into some pancrase tournament or something like that.
And Vin Diesel shows up.
Here it is.
Like this is the Fast and the Furious reference, right? Like The Rock shows up in Voyager. Like Vin Diesel shows up and he's like the champion, and Ivanova's got to go put him in his place.
Yeah, that'd be fun. But no, so here's my official guess for real. I said, what I think that we're going to get our drug episode. We were talking about drugs here a little while ago. And there's some rough drug that just hit the station. It's some variation of the dust or the spice or whatever it is. And the street name is TKO. But I think Garibaldi is going to get roofied with it. And he's going to be out for most of the episode. And it's going to be about, this will be some way of hitting, the dangers of drugs on Babylon.
Is his addiction coming back into play?
I think so. I think so.
That would make, I hate to say that would make me feel better. Like, it's not that I want Garibaldi to be this large addict. Go back and hear that episode that we did a couple shows ago. But I don't want them to just drop that either. Like,
yeah, no, I think it'd be good storytelling. It'd be disappointing, right, from a character thing, but it'd be good storytelling.
I like it.
Well, I guess we're going to find out next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening. Drop over to Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Audible, Spotify, wherever you can leave a rating, a review. Please do that. It helps us out so much, and we appreciate it. We'll read your review right here on the podcast. And so until next time.
Jeff. Hey, listen, I know I keep interrupting you. I've done it all episode long. I'm so sorry. But I've been listening back to some stuff. This whole ending part, like that whole spiel you just gave, it's getting old. It hasn't been updated in a while.
I mean, to be fair, I've been kind of out of circulation for a while.
Huh. Well, you got anything interesting?
I do.
Don't you dare.
Live long.
I swear I will grind your skull to powder. I will blacken your sky, son. I will sow your ground with salt if you complete that sentence one more time.
And prosper.
It's my first time.
Before Game of Thrones, before Breaking Bad, before Battlestar Galactica, there was Babylon 5.
What have I gotten myself into?
Join the Grey 17 crew of both newbies and long-term fans as we review every episode of this groundbreaking sci-fi show.
I wanted to punch him in his stupid face.
I didn't like it.
Hold me back, Scott.
Start a normal space where we discuss each episode spoiler-free, and then, for those who know the show well, join us Beyond the Rim, where we talk about all the plot threads and Easter eggs.
That sounds like another question that we will answer for you years from now. So enjoy.
Whether you're experiencing Babylon 5 for the first or 100th time, we want to go on this journey with you.
This show hits a lot of this stuff pretty head on.
At the very beginning, when the guy was like, if they eat their partner when they're done, what am I getting into with this show?
Join us on Grey 17.
I'm telling you, I'm quitting. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to be like, you know what? We're done.